Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our second FLG web series titled Plan for Success, Building a Great Practice Plan. Before we get into our presentation, I quickly just want to make sure everyone can hear us. Also, everyone should be able to see our screen. And what we have up is our first slide that says welcome. If you do not see that, please make sure to send us a message in the chat section, which is located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You're going to also use the chat section if you have any questions throughout the presentation. So again, chat section in the bottom right-hand corner. Make sure to send it to us, and we'll get you guys all hooked up. Make sure you can hear us, and make sure you can see us. If you have any issues and you are not getting any response from the chat section for whatever reason, you can email Matt Gurcio, which is MGUERCIO@FLGLacrosse.com, and he'll respond to you right away with any with some information to help you guys out. All right, so without further ado, we are going to introduce who's in the room. I am Corder Winkoff. I'm the program director of FLG here, and I'm really looking forward to helping present here tonight. And to my right,
I'm Robin Pastuch. I help run the program as well, especially on that girls side. I do the curriculum planning for the girls side along with Corey. And I also coach many other teams outside of FLG as well.
Great. And then we also have...
So cool.
Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Brandon Mangan. I'm a coach here, and I will be answering any questions you have tonight. All right?
Awesome.
Thanks.
So Brandon's fielding your questions. Robin and I are presenting. And we do have a couple FLG staff members that are located at their satellite locations, and they'll be helping out tonight too. Mike Winkoff's one of them, who's the CEO of the company. He's helping us out tonight. Matt Gurcio is the guy that you're going to email if you have any questions. He's also the gentleman that put together this presentation tonight, and Bob is the CFO as well, who is not with us tonight because it is tax season, and he's very into that type of stuff. All right, so here we go, our first slide, and this is a big question that we would like to ask before we even get into anything. What is your practice plan? Now, if you notice the picture that we have down here, this is what we see a lot when you drive past some fields, whether it be a soccer practice going on, a lacrosse practice, and basically it's a coach sitting in front of his team who's stretching, and I think you guys and we both know exactly what he's thinking. Oh dear, what am I going to do tonight for practice? He's now thinking, you know, what he's going to do with his team. He did not create a practice plan. A plan is not thinking about what you're going to do while your team is stretching. All right, we're going to get into what a good plan is in our opinion. Now, some other questions that you should think about. Are you visualizing and then implementing? What does that mean? Basically, are you thinking about what you want to do with your team and then actually doing it in practice? Are you kind of seeing things that you know, on TV, on SportsCenter, maybe on Twitter, and using that at practice? We like to say if you visualize, it'll materialize. So that's a big part about creating a good plan for your team.
And the biggest thing about visualizing too is that maybe you see something that another team does, and you kind of want to implement that with your team because you think it'll work well with the personnel that you have. Why not take that, make a drill out of it, and bring it into your practice the next day? There's nothing wrong with kind of copying other teams if it works with your personnel as well. So that's how the sport works.
Are you consulting with your staff? Now, if you're thinking about what you're going to do for practice while the boys or girls are stretching, you probably haven't talked over, you know, with your staff what you want to do. That's really, really important. And we're going to talk about why a little later in the presentation, but the one thing that really stands out to me when I think about consulting with your staff is, hey, your coaches have to know exactly what they're running and what drills they're going to do. They want to know, you know, and if they don't know that, they're not going to effectively run it with their team. The players aren't going to get better. So that's really important, and we'll talk more about that later. Now, are you documenting? And we're going to talk about the importance of documenting your practice plans. We're going to talk about why that's important later. And now, are you being, you know, repetitive, or are you being creative? We see a lot of coaches, they kind of have, the same old tricks. And, players, they kind of get that sense that practices are getting stale if you don't change things up and you don't get creative. We're not asking you to reinvent the wheel, but we are asking you to give some fresh ideas and drills to your players so that way their minds are stimulated, they're getting better in different ways. And we're going to actually even provide some creative drills for you guys tonight to run at your boys and girls lacrosse practices, a little bit later.
And also, if there's, these are just a couple of drills that are kind of easy to show you guys in such, in the vicinity, in this area. But we have a lot of other drills. If you've got any questions, feel free to call us, email us. Be happy to share the drills that we run on a daily basis.
Awesome. Now, moving forward here, we're going to talk about, in our opinion, what is essential to building a great practice plan. Now, there might be some coaches out there that don't have any of these bullets on our list. There might be some coaches with different bullets, which is great. We're not saying we have the end-all, be-all practice plan, but we are saying these are things that have worked for our program and could possibly work for you too. Now, every practice plan we have, we put a date, and that's really important because if you're trying to successfully build a program, you have to worry about not just the season that's going on, you have to worry about seasons in the future. You have to worry about a lot of different grades. For example, if you're, directing a PAL program, you're overseeing 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. You're talking about 5 or 6 grades. So if you would create a practice plan and put a date on that, a coach the next year might be able to run that with his 5th grade team. And then the next year, that coach can run it with the 5th grade team. But if you don't put a date, then things are going to get lost in translation. You're going to be disorganized, and it's going to be really difficult to build that program and make sure that every single age group is being successful. So that's huge. We put a date on top of every single one of our plans, so that way the next year we can go back to it, maybe not necessarily use the same thing, but we can refine it and say, hey, this worked, this didn't. Let's change it up here, or let's leave it as is. So we have a format and a template that we're going to share with everyone here tonight that we use for all the FLG practices. We even have Robin coaches over at Hewlett, Brandon coaches over at Farmingdale. They even use a template similar to ours. At certain moments, they use the same template to run their practices, and we've seen it, be really successful, not just for club teams and practices, but also for PAL, which I work heavily with, and so does Robin, but also for high school.
Also with the template, one of the best things about it is that you can kind of use the same idea with the template every day and kind of go, you'll see when we get to ours, but then all you have to do is put different drills in and you're running a very organized practice. The team will feel it, the girls, the boys will feel it, the coaches feel it, and it feels like a program. You're not just running a practice for that day, you're running a practice for the whole week. So it's really important to have this template in mind, especially because part of the template that we've kind of talked about is the same thing they use in like a phys ed model, which is where there shouldn't be a lot of just kind of standing around for the kids. You kind of want the kids all involved in things at the same time. You don't want them really, it's called waiting time. You don't want a lot of that, but we'll get into that template.
It's important to have a productive pre-practice. So we like to say at FLG, as soon as the boys and girls get to the field, practice has started. So, why, if there's another team using the fields, why wait around? Utilize that time, whether it be 15 to 20 minutes before practice, to get better. And we do partner passing before practice, before every single practice, and we'll get into the details of what that means in a little bit. We say everything must be timed. That's important because I'm sure we got some coaches here tonight, and I'm guilty of this too. I see something at practice, we're doing a certain drill, and it looks disastrous. Our players are not grasping a concept. And instead of maybe moving on to the next drill because time has expired, I decide to stick with that drill for a half hour. And after that half hour is over, yeah, maybe the boys or girls got a little better at the drill, but it gets really stale, it gets boring, and you miss out on doing other fun things for the kids. So it's important to time everything and stay to your plan. So that way you make the most of whatever time period you have during practice. Coaches are to know the plan inside out. Now, all of our coaches know the plan before practice, and depending on what event we're running, we'll talk to coaches maybe on a phone call, maybe through text the day before practice to kind of go over everything. We before the season starts at FLG, we always do a coaches clinic where we bring our coaches together and we run through certain drills, our template, our philosophies. That's great as well. But really, it could be as simple as say, hey, let's meet a half hour before practice starts, or even 20 minutes, and let's go through the plan together. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just make sure your coaches know what the plan is and make sure they can execute it. Now, set goals for each practice. We're going to talk about, some goals that we set as a program. And they don't have to be anything too crazy. You can pick 1, 2, 3 maybe goals depending on what team you have. But it's really important to set goals so that way the drills you run kind of align with those goals. Find 3 wallabies that should be limited throughout practice. Now, wallabies are something that we created here at FLG. And wallabies are plays that are below the FLG expected level. And we always list out 3 to make sure that we eliminate or we limit those wallabies throughout practice. We'll give you a couple examples of what wallabies are later in the presentation. And if you want to know an extended list of what we do in our program with the wallabies, feel free to email us or give us a call, and we can help you out with that. All right, moving forward. We're going to take you through the FLG practice format and template. We're going to give you drills within each section of the format. And this is really helpful for any coaches here that want to learn some new things, or even, even kind of build on their knowledge of other things that they've seen. So the first thing we're going to talk about and elaborate on, which we mentioned earlier, is our pre-practice routine, partner passing. Now, we're going to talk about why we don't love line drills, which a lot of coaches do with their teams. And, everyone's seen the classic line drills where we have players, let's say we have 3 players in each line. I've seen the boys and the girls do this. And what happens is we have players running directly at each other. Now, I can't, off the top of my head, think too many times you've run directly at a player and been able to handle or throw a perfect pass to your teammate. In the game of lacrosse, you'll see players running this way. You'll see players running that way. You'll see players looping around. You'll see players running towards the sideline. You'll see players running that way, right? Players are going all different directions.
They should be.
But they're never, ever running directly at each other.
Very rarely do you see players running at each other. So why work on that type of pass? You're making it very, very easy. With that said, that's not the game of lacrosse. The game of lacrosse is free-flowing. There's players going in all different directions. So we kind of use a partner passing series, which has players in 2 lines set up depending on what type of pass you're throwing, 5 to 10 yards apart from one another. And when we do this partner passing series, everything that we do has purpose, especially the person that's standing across from one another. It's nice to have players of the same position. So Robin and I were both attackers. We would want to stand across from one another because we have similar types of skills. We're both good with both hands. We like working together. We do the 2-man game together. For whatever reason, you want to make sure the person across from you is someone that maybe is a similar position or a similar type player. We always have the players working their way up the field, which in the game of lacrosse, that's typically what happens. And now you're working on not just throwing directly at someone, you're working on throwing. You can talk about throwing over the shoulder. You can talk about throwing with your stick to the outside. You can talk about throwing with your stick to the inside. You can work on shovel passes. You can work on ground balls, working your way up the field. But again, it's much more realistic. You can work on a lot of different variations in this partner passing series.
It's also great in this because you're kind of calling kids on their bluff, on their throwing and catching, because if you're not making a good pass, your partner's going to be really pissed and they have to run 50 yards to pick the ball up. Whereas in line drills, they just pick up the next ball and go. It kind of holds them accountable to really focus on what they're doing. Also in the girls' game, it's really important to make sure at first they're running forward and then they're kind of turning their shoulders and their hips to get square to make that pass. Then when we do quick sticks, we shuffle. But it's really big to show them that you have to be square to make that pass or it's not going to go in the right direction. So you can kind of call them on it. You can pick up a ton of little things that they're doing wrong with their fundamentals and fix it right there, because it's not in a line drill where it's easy to cover up a mistake if they're basket catching, if they're asking for the ball with their stick down. On this, they really have to be focused, so you can kind of call them out and say, hey, the reason why that pass went over there was because you didn't square your shoulders. So it's a really easy way to kind of stand in the middle and coach them as they're going and kind of explain why they're not being successful with it, rather than the line drills where they can cover those mistakes up.
It's important to know, too, you can do partner passing anywhere. So you're at a tournament, right, in the summertime with your PAL team or your club team, and there's a game going on. You only have like 5 yards of space to warm up. hey, why not do partner passing with your players really tight next to one another, right? They're going to get tons of reps. They're going to work on all their pass variations, right? Outside, inside, behind the back, shovel passes, one-handed passes. You know, you can do it anywhere, right? The girls can do it at the 50-yard line. They can do it inside the 8. You can do your partner passing wherever you need to, wherever you need to get warmed up. So that's what we do with our boys and our girls, and it's worked out really well for us. We do it inside, outside, and again, there's tons of variations, and if you're a little confused with some of our terminology of what we're saying with outside, inside, shovel pass, behind the back, you can shoot us an email. We'd be happy to elaborate on those things. All right, so that's our partner passing, and that's how we always warm up for practice.
Another good thing to say about partner passing, too, the boys do this a lot. The girls should do it a lot more. On the FLG side, is they do a lot of things backpedaling to make those passes. I think that's important. You can kind of explain why they do that. I can explain why we should do it more. But backpedaling is really important. It's a big aspect of the game. A lot of times you're moving backward to get away from pressure. You can't always turn and run away, but it's easy to make that kind of lever pass, which also girls need to do more of. With that back pedal, it's super helpful.
All right, the ball, let's say the ball's coming up the field. This player is an attacker. They're getting into the hole. They might be running, looking over their shoulder, and they get to a point where they have to turn and backpedal. Now this player is in a position where they're going to throw them the ball. Well, you got to be able to catch a ball while you're backpedaling so you can turn to the cage and make something happen. So that's a great point there. You can do it shuffling, like Robin said. You can do it running forwards, or you can do partner passing going backwards. Again, it depends on the age, the skill level, depends on where you are with your team, but you can get to a point where, there's so many things you can do here. So
it's also something you can build on every time you do it. Like the first time you can keep it kind of simple, and then you can get more and more difficult as you go.
All right, awesome. We're going to move to the now kind of the starter practice. We always like to do fundamental station. It's not necessarily stations, but we have different fundamental drills that we do for different positions to open up practice. Now, depending on where your team is, for the younger players, 30 minutes is a good length of time. For the older players, maybe 20 to 15 minutes. And again, you should do different drills during this time period. Ideally, if you have 3 to 4 coaches, you have one coach take a specific position and work with them. So right now, we're going to take you through a couple of good attack drills for the boys and a couple of good attacker drills for the girls. And we'll bump over to the next page here. So we got a little field space. All right, I'm going to take you guys through the guys drill to start. This drill is called Bert's Bees. It's one of my favorites. You set up cones in a square right behind the goal. You set up 2 cones at about the 5x5, maybe a little bit lower. So maybe like 3 yards, okay? You can put anywhere from 5 attackers, if you have 5 attackers at practice, to 15 attackers at practice. So it depends how many players that you have. I'm going to do it as if, let's say, we had 6 attackers at practice. And I'm going to make a square that's about 10 yards by 10 yards. That's really 15 by 15. It's a little off. So you're going to have every attacker inside the box. They can't leave the box. Everyone has a ball in their stick. That's huge. Get your attackers as many reps as they can. Get a lot of ball, have a ball in their stick as many, as often as you can at practice. And all 6 attackers have a ball, and you're going to have one person in there who's going to be a defender. And that could be an attacker as well, just for the sake of the drill. They're going to be kind of floating around inside the beehive, trying to get the ball out of these players' sticks. Every attacker, again, has a ball in their stick, and they're cradling with one hand, and they got one hand protecting their stick. So they're constantly buzzing around the beehive. They're moving. They're working on protecting their stick in traffic, not running into people. They're working on keeping their eyes up, which is very, very important as an attacker when you have the ball in your stick. They're doing it with their right hand. They're doing it with their left hand. Now, as the coach who's sitting outside the beehive, you're going to call a player's name. Let's say I call Brandon Mangan. Brandon is now going to escape the beehive and get to that 5x5, dodging with his head up. Once he gets to the 5x5, he's going to inside roll. Oh, please excuse me there. All right, let me go backwards. 1 sec. All right. Brandon's going to inside roll and then take a shot on cage. If you have 2 goalies, that's so ideal. It doesn't always happen in practice, but you can have a goalie actually hop in net and try to save the shot here. We use tennis balls sometimes if we have goalies so we don't hurt them. With that said, if you only have lacrosse balls, you can do that as well. We like to say fake to the near pipe, shoot to the far pipe. Now, let's say I call out Robin, and she's a lefty. she can escape the beehive, inside roll, and take a shot on cage. We like to do this drill in certain time periods. So I like to start at 3 minutes. After 3 minutes are up and every player's gotten a couple inside rolls, take a break, 30 seconds. Then go 2 minutes, take a break, 30 seconds, then go for 1 minute. That'll eat up about 15 to 20 minutes, and you're working on inside rolls, protecting your stick, dodging with one hand on your stick, dodging with your eyes up, and most importantly, you're working on dodging to the goal after you're really tired, which attackmen have to do all the time. So this is Bert's Bees. It's one of our favorite fundamental station drills at FLG, and it's great if you have attackers.
It's also very easily modified to the girls' game. All you have to do is put 2 hands on the stick, and you're pretty golden there.
Yep,
So,
exactly. So we're going to do a little attack drill here for the girls.
So when I have time with just my attackers, I really like to work on their movement with their shooting. So I do a nice simple shooting drill that kind of gets into the motion that I run with my teams, which is like the pass and cut through and then coming off the cut. So you get 3 lines up at like, the 8 or the 12. It depends on, the age of the girls. The older they are, the further out they start. And then I like to have a coach with the ball down low, but you can have one of your down low feeders as well. What happens is the girl in the middle does not have a ball. There's lines of girls. So, there's 3 girls per line, however many attack you have. What will happen is the girl in the middle cuts. She's going to get a pass from the girl who's on the side with the coach. She passes her the ball. She's going to take that shot. As soon as she passes her the ball, she's going to now cut off of her, come get a pass from opposite, so from the other girl, go to goal, and then after that girl passes, she's going to now cut off the last cut and get a pass from the coach behind.
This is a great drill because every time you pass, you're cutting, which is extremely realistic in the flow of, girls' offense and the guys' game too. Also, like anytime you pass, you should move, right? You never want to be stagnant as an attacker, so it creates really good habits. And you're working on shooting on the move. As an attacker, you'll get a couple time room shots, maybe if a team's playing a zone, but for the most part, you're moving you're moving when you shoot. So
it's really great because it gets the girls to keep their feet moving. It's a huge thing for them to be like, hey, you need to run through the pass because if you don't, you're going to mess up the whole flow of the attack. It also makes sure that that they're focusing on their catch before they shoot it, and you need to remind them that if you drop the ball, you don't get to shoot. So if I'm running full speed and I take my eye off the ball, I drop my pass, I just go to the next line. I don't get to shoot. That way it doesn't ruin the flow of the attack, and it kind of reminds them that if you don't catch the ball in a game, you don't get to shoot. So they're going to focus on the catch first and then shooting.
Awesome. So remember, coach has the balls behind. The balls are here, and this line does not have balls. So you can get tons of reps, tons of shots.
And the way that you rotate is that you just go from, the line closest to the bottom of the screen right there to the middle. Middle goes to the next line goes all the way around. So they're just rotating constantly. That's why I like to have a coach down low, not one person's passing. It just makes it flow easier. I can keep the tempo going.
Cool. Now we'll take you through 2 good drills for midfielders during fundamental stations. And we'll pull up our diagram here. This drill is awesome for our middies because it incorporates a lot of different concepts, which is what we like. Now you can simplify this drill if you'd like. You can make it more complex if you like. Take it and run with it. We set this drill up with a line of middies here. This player is going to start with a ball. We're going to have 1 middie on the crease, and then a 3rd middie standing on the weak side here. This is a lacrosse goal. We like to always shoot over lacrosse goals if we can. For the younger players, we shoot over mini goals. And the reason we do that is to work on properly shooting from high to low and high to high and work on shooting overhand. And if you put a cage in front of you, we call that barrier shooting. Now you're working on getting your hand up and making sure you shoot overhand, because if you don't, the ball's going to go into the near net, not the net that is inside the crease. Okay, so for this drill, we're going to work on, this is kind of an semblance of our offense a little bit too, but most importantly, we're going to work on dodging really hard down the alley. That's the first step of the drill. Okay, this player right here is going to dodge nice and hard down the alley. While that happens, this player on the crease is going to pop. Now we're working on a pop cut. After that pop happens, this midfielder on the weak side is going to start working their way down to a good shooting spot. The dodging midfielder is going to roll back as if a slide came, run away from pressure. They're going to quickly move the ball with their stick to the outside to this middie in the middle. This middie in the middle is going to swing the ball to this middie on the weak side, who is now going to step in for a barrier shot. Okay? Boom, right on goal, just like that. So now we're working on dodging hard down the alley. We're working on punching the sideline, getting our stick to the outside, rolling away from pressure. We'll work on throwing to the midfielder and swinging the ball to the far side, and we're working on a barrier shot. A lot of high-level concepts that even players at a young age can work on. You're going to basically follow your pass in this drill. The person that dodges is now the crease person. The person on the crease is the shooter. The shooter goes to the end of the line. So that's a great drill for our midfielders, and we do that all the time. And there's different variations that you can run with as well.
You can also do that on the girl side as well. Instead of having the girl on the crease, the midi, you don't really want your middies playing that low. You'd have her on the 8 and maybe start up a little higher.
So we'd have her right there.
Yeah. Same idea.
All right, now for our ladies, this is a drill that's actually great for guys too, but
we stole this from the boys' side. It's basically just a nice, you split the field into 3 zones. You get middies in the middle, and they're basically playing 2-on-2, where the defense is trying to force them into either zone 1 or zone 3, and the offensive middies are trying to go to goal playing the 2-man game. The 2-man game, as you see, is kind of started by the Hopkins women's lacrosse, and it is basically the way that every team plays now. It's kind of 2v2 is the setup you're looking for, so it's a nice way to get your middies involved in that 2-man game. Coming down the alley is good in transition too, because you want to punch the middle once you get into the opposing 30.
So it's great too for middies to work on dodging. We call it downhill, which is towards the goal. So if this middie has the ball, they pass, they cut. This middie's forced to dodge hard downhill because they don't want to get forced into this zone or that zone. So it's a great opportunity to teach your midfielders to dodge hard towards the goal to put pressure on the defense. This is a pressure point when you get into the 8 here. Defense doesn't want you there. So that's a nice little midi drill we do. Great to work on. Also defensive mid, forcing players to those zones.
So the biggest thing with something like this is you want to express communication with the D-mid. So the way that I would set this up is you roll a ground ball and whoever gets it is on offense. The other ones are on defense.
Sure.
Now all of a sudden everyone's playing everything. It's not, oh, coach, but I'm an offensive player. My biggest thing for my girls is that if you know what you're doing defensively, it makes you a better offensive player. So I make them play both in every drill that we do, except for generally 7v7. This really teaches them that they need to work off each other. They need to set picks to space, let their teammates run off it. It's helpful to teach them how to set a pick on the ball, otherwise it's going to be illegal pretty much every time. And it's great to show them that motion again. You're doing that going off the cut just like we were in that shooting drill.
Awesome. So the last position we're going to talk about is defense and goalie. Typically we have our defenders and our goalies work together during fundamental stations. So we'll take you through a quick guys drill and a quick girls drill that you can work on during fundamental stations for these 2 positions. So for the guys, we do we call it 3-man breakout drill, where we have 3 defenders and a goalie. Let's say the coach rolls the ball to the goalie. Once that happens, the goalie's going to yell break. This defender's just going to kind of camp out in the hole or the kitchen to protect this area of the field. This defender is going to banana out right below goal line, and this goalie is going to escape pressure. Okay? The drill starts. This goalie is going to outlet the ball to this defender. Now working on catching the ball with their stick to the outside, a realistic pass that goalies throw all the time. Once that happens, this defender is going to work on now breaking out correctly over their shoulder with the stick in their left hand. That's a realistic break for this defender to have. Now, we're not going to necessarily throw that ball right away. Instead, we're going to work on redirecting the ball, which means throwing the ball to the goalie, then the goalie throwing the ball to the other side of the field. Or we're going to work on what we call an over, which is a defender throwing that really long pass all the way across the field. Now, depending on how old your players are, you can either throw a redirect or an over. Let's say we have some 7th graders and they throw that overpass. The ball is now with this defender who's going to start walking it up the field. Once that happens, this defender in the middle is going to now break out righty over the shoulder. Having that stick in the correct hand, they're going to catch that ball. Now that defender is going to get an over-the-shoulder catch. This defender who originally threw that overpass is now going to start breaking out towards the middle of the field. This defender who caught it over the shoulder is going to turn, throw that pass. That defender should have that stick in their left hand, catch it over their shoulder, and they're going to go to the goal. So they're working on a lot of different concepts here. Once this defender catches that over the shoulder, they're going to the goal, and they're working on a one-on-one with the goalie who's got to race back into the net. And defenders like this because everyone likes to shoot, right? So defenders get a little one-on-one action. They get to shoot a little bit. They get to catch, throw over passes. They get to work on redirects and catch it over their shoulder. So a lot of different concepts that you work on. After this is over, you're going to get either a new goalie in or the same goalie and 3 new defenders. And you can run this
Anywhere,
and you can run it for anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how many players you have. Okay, so we're gonna do our girls drill next.
All right, so this is a really simple footwork drill. I like to do this with the defense while my offense is going through that shooting drill. No, they're going to be on the 8. So this is called approach and recover. Basically, you're going to have groups of 4. 2 girls on the 8, 2 girls on the 12. But like I said, you can do this anywhere. If your offense is using the 8, I would just have them go, on lines on the field. Maybe they're at like the 30 and the 35, or they're at the 35, 40, wherever you have space. It doesn't have to be on a curve. It doesn't have to be on that. Take those 3 out.
What's that?
It's just the 4 of them.
Okay. I was just doing those to the next players in line.
You're going to have groups of 4.
Oh, groups of 4?
Yeah, so it's going to be groups of 4. Excuse me, sorry. It's going to be groups of 4. So if you've got, there's not like a line. It's groups of 4. If you've got 6 defenders, then yeah, you can kind of have a line of girls waiting to go in.
So players that aren't in are just going to line up.
No, everyone's doing it at the same time.
Oh, okay. So you get a bunch of
So
groups.
if you've got
going.
8 defenders, you have 2 groups of 4 going at the same time. That's why you can do this literally anywhere. You just grab lines on the field.
Perfect.
All you need is like 10 yards of space total. So what's going to happen is one of the defenders is going to have the ball up top. That girl's going to come out. She's going to make her approach. As she makes her approach, she's going to yell that she has ball. Her help defense is going to let her know which way to force. We tell our girls to let the girl know which side you are on for them. So if Corey's my help here, he's not going to say force her to her right. He's going to say force left because he's on my left side. So I'm now going to turn this way with my stick on the outside lane, forcing her into the middle towards Corey. So that's where you want to force. So now it's the approach, blah, blah, blah. That girl passes to the next girl. She goes in, she fake dodges a little bit, and then she recovers. So the girl who's on ball recovers to the 8. The girl who is off ball is now going to approach and force her in towards the help. The other girl is telling her where the help is, stick in the passing lane. It's pretty basic. It's a footwork drill. The girls are going to be exhausted. It's quick. You tell the girls who are holding the ball, hold it for 3 seconds, make a couple of dodges, pass to the next girl. So it's, ball, 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 help, 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 ball, 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 I got your help left, I'm with you left, ball, ball, ball. It's constant. They're constantly talking, sprinting in and out. You're working on their footwork, getting to their spot and dictating. It's a really great way for them to kind of understand, stick in the passing lane and understand the communication as well.
Awesome. So those are our fundamental stations that we work on with each position. And the next piece of practice is really the guts of practice. This is a good opportunity to work on any type of teamwork that you need to accomplish with your team. For the boys, good opportunity to work on 6v6. The players working on their settled offense and settled defense.
77 on the girls' side.
For girls, 77,
you can run
right?
through some plays.
Yeah, you can run through a couple plays. I think at the youth level, it's less important. Maybe at the club level or a little bit with the older players. Plays is a good time to get those in there. Good time to work on transition. Good time to work on your 5v4s, your 4v3s, your 6v5s. Good time to work on riding and clearing, full field. So you can even work on situations here, right? You're up 2 goals with 1 minute left and there's a face-off. You play it out from there.
You can put your man down zone in on the girls' side if you're, you have a card and you're trying to kind of keep the team from going to goal on a card, and then you can obviously also be man down offensively and help the girls get away from a double. You can go through what you would do if you're up 1 with 2 minutes left in the game and you're putting in a stall. It's a good time to kind of get those game-like situations in and not necessarily work on skill work, but work on things as a team.
Also a good opportunity to work on some leadership, right? If let's say, you have a team that's unfamiliar with one another, you can do certain exercises and activities to have the players get to know one another. So we like doing, leadership style. It's more competitive teamwork games that we kind of incorporate with our practices so the players can learn from one another. So we're not going to go through any of these drills just because there's so many different directions we can go with it. If you want to know some good teamwork style drills or things that we do with our players, feel free to reach out. But this is kind of open to interpretation. So the last piece of practice, we always finish with the small area games or fusion. Now, it depends on the type of team you're working with. It depends on the area of the season you're in. But we like to finish with this because players really enjoy the fusion games or the small area competitive games. So they finish on a high note. We play sometimes for sprints. We play for certain things that makes the players really work really hard. But most importantly, these drills that we are going to show you here, the players enjoy so much that they're constantly competing. They're constantly going hard against one another, and they're constantly working on all different aspects of the game, which we like. So
a big thing with this too to know is that like if you've got a big team, instead of trying to make it bigger numbers in the game, you can have the girls or boys who are out doing ladder work, doing cone drills, whatever you want. That can kind of be their conditioning aspect of practice as well, so that they're not just standing, especially on a cold day. You don't really want your kids standing. I like to have my girls run through ladders while the other girls are kind of in, and then we switch groups and they kind of do a 50-50 change.
Yeah, with the small area games too, like to keep Robin's point in mind, a lot of times there is a lot of standing outside of drills. So with our small area games, we like to limit shifts to 1 minute shifts or 1-minute-15-second shifts. So that way players are constantly going in and out, and that way players aren't standing around for longer than 3 minutes.
And that's also another big reason why you need to have a watch on you at all times.
First game we're going to show is it's the decision maker game, and you can play this game either 3-on-3. You can play it 4v4 with the guys. We like to play it 5v5 because it creates two-man game situations, and we'll explain why. And with our small area games, we always have a description of the game, which I think is important to have on you in case you kind of forget any rules or variations you want to incorporate in the game. And we always have purpose and objectives, so you know exactly why you're playing the game. You know what the players are getting out of. And a lot of times, too, like if you introduce these small area competitive games to practice, you might have a few parents or people that are a little, they kind of are a little cautious of why you're doing it. They haven't seen it before. They're like, hey, why are you not working on plays so we can win? Most importantly, these drills, believe it or not, they'll help you win, but that's not what's important. They're going to make your players better. At the same time, there's tons of reasons and there's tons of different skills that these players develop by getting involved in these games. And if you have it written down, then you're going to actually be able to show the parents, hey, this is why we're working on this drill. We have them listed out right here.
And guys, one of the hardest concepts, especially at the younger age group, and even as a varsity coach, it's hard for our players to understand, is spatial reasoning. These small area games help so much with working off each other's space and creating space for each other. It's such a hard concept to teach, especially if they only strictly play lacrosse and they don't play other sports. That it's so hard to teach spatial reasoning. But when you play these small area games, they need to learn how to get out of each other's space, either cut through or always go underneath or set a pick instead of just kind of staying there and getting in the way. When they were pushing and pulling, it's all about creating that space for each other.
Sure.
I mean, I use these drills in every single practice with my varsity team, and today the girls weren't quite understanding the concept, and I at one point yelled to the attack, play the crease game, because it's one that I don't have a name for that we do often, and they scored off it because they're like, oh yeah, that teaches us how to cut. We can only be in the crease for 2 seconds, so they started moving again. They started to understand it. So every single one of these drills that Corey and myself are going to go over now, and Brandon, are boys and girls. Don't for a second think that because it's set up to look like a boys field or whatever that it's for boys. These I use every single day with my club girls, with my PAL team, with my varsity team. These are great drills.
So with these drills, you got to set boundaries. So for this game, our boundaries have been set as the restraining box where the green line is. When the players aren't in the drill, we line them up kind of like a hockey bench, shoulder to shoulder. We usually have a coach right here with a bunch of balls, and we always have a coach on the field that's a referee. If you have one coach, you can really throw balls in and still be the ref, or you can have a bucket of balls with you. It's up to you. And the reason that we do that is when the ball goes outside the boundaries, instead of, let's say the ball goes out right over here, instead of this player that's closest to the ball running like 50 yards to go chase it, wasting an upwards of 15 to 20 seconds, the coach just rolls a new ball in to not waste any time, and now the players can just fight for a contested ground ball and keep the drill going. That's really important because we're talking about 1 minute to 1 minute and 20-second shifts. You can get a lot of touches in that minute and 20 seconds if you allow them to constantly fight for balls. You won't if you allow them to chase after balls and run 20 yards away.
It's also a really great way to get the kids to kind of forget about their mistake and move on to the next play and not dwell on it. Like if a kid drops the ball and it goes out of bounds, instead of being like, oh, darn it, I turned it over, they have a chance to win it back with the next ground ball.
So in this drill, again, these are the cages here. This rhino line is the midline, and you can play this 3v3. The big thing with this game, let's say you have the X's have the ball, and they're working the ball up the field. This player, who's probably the furthest player back, has to stay behind this line. And the reason that we do that, we're now teaching, and this is great for players at a young age, we're teaching that you can't have a certain number of players in the box in the game of lacrosse. You can't just have everyone run over the midfield line. That's against the rules.
Or the restraining
So that's
line.
why, or the restraining line for the girls. So you now are kind of teaching that concept of, hey, I need to stay back, and not necessarily the same person. Like you don't have to designate, oh, this person always has to stay back. You just got to kind of communicate that. And to Brandon's point, it's all about spatial reasoning. If you're the player that's farthest from the goal, then why don't you just be the player that stays back? So it's not like a hard, fast rule, but it's teaching, where you are in the field. It's also teaching specific lines and rules, and it's allowing the players to kind of play free-flowing and transition and work on a bunch of different skills.
And at the really young age, you might want to assign a player just so that they can kind of rotate through that and they know I stay back, kind of like you would do in a PAL game as well.
So you can play, this is 3-on-3 with one player back, creating 2-on-2 or 2-on-1 situations. You can move this up all the way to 4v4. And you can get crazy creative if you want. You can incorporate several passes before they score. You can incorporate behind the back passes, bounce passes.
Ball.
Brandon, with his varsity team, he likes to, he mixes it up with yellow and white balls. If you roll a yellow ball into play, maybe you need to see a pick before you go to the goal. You can incorporate whatever rules you want. You can get creative as the players get better at it. So that's the decision maker drill, and this is something that we can send you guys if you email us, and I'd be happy to share that. All right, the next small area game or fusion game we're going to go through is called Eboli. This is another one of our favorites.
This is one of my all-time favorites.
So Coach Robin loves this drill. She does it with her ladies, and it really helps them. Again, we're setting boundaries for every single game. So for this game, we're going to play in the middle of the field. We're actually using the girls' lines and the guys' lines. So you can get creative. You play in a lot of these turf fields at these high school programs, and you have like 50 different sports lines on the field. You know what? Instead of getting overwhelmed, get creative, right? Use those lines to your advantage. Players really like when you guys get creative and crafty and make them think. That's the beauty about these small area games. Players now are forced to think and do things they've never done before. So our boundaries are the wing line, the top of the restraining line, and the crease is going to be the girls' circle. And if that's too big, you can make cones around 2 cages that are back to back.
Or you can use a bow net if you have one of those as well. The bow net creases are great. That's something that I just invested in with my team. Well, I shouldn't say I had the school invest in with my team. Those bow net creases, we like to fold them up, make them smaller for other drills or make them into 2. It's a really great investment tool, and it's something to look into. It's called a bow net crease. So we use those a lot with FLG as well.
Yeah, we also use the bow net goals. That's what we shoot over for barrier shooting.
And they're fold up into nothing. They're little pieces, so it's great to, I joke around that I can pretty much start a practice at any time because of the equipment I have in my car. Because if I have the bow net cages, creases, and a bucket of balls, I can literally play a game anywhere.
So this drill is 2v2. So you have 2 X's and 2 O's going against one another. They can score in either goal. They just can't go in the crease. We have players that are not in the drill or on the outside, but the first player in each line is actually involved in the drill. They just have to kind of stay where they are. They can't go into the area of play. So those players are used as outlet passes. So if X has the ball, we like to get it to the outside first, allow them to now get to a spot where there may be a threat, move off ball, and that player is going to now get them back, back the ball and they can play from there. Now this works on a bunch of different concepts, both in the guys game and the girls game. The first concept we like to talk about is mirroring. So if this player has the ball, we like to talk about if they drive upfield to their left hand, this player, instead of hanging out in the back pipe right here, they're going to mirror to the backside. The reason that we say that's really important, because if this player turns the corner and shoots and misses, this player is going to back up the shot. Or let's say this player turns the corner, they slide. You can always work on that OPP pass, which is
opposite
post pass for a shot. So you're working on a bunch of different concepts. I know we drew a lot of lines that looks a little confusing, but it's that mirroring concept, which is great for that two-man game or the woo-man game for the girls that we like to work on. You work on scoring from X. You can work on scoring with your left hand to the outside. You can work on your Lyles, we call Lyle Thompson shots, where you have your stick to the inside. And also, which is really a nice thing to work on as well, is if this player on the outside has the ball and these players who are the O's are doing a really nice job locking up on their defenders or on the person that they're guarding, this X player can actually throw a skip pass all the way across to that first player in line. And what Coach Mangan likes to do with his high school players is if you execute a skip pass and there's a yellow ball in play, you can actually step in and take a shot right there. And hopefully you have a goalie in each cage. I've even done this drill with one goalie, and he bounces back from goal to goal, and it ends up being really fun, but it's ideal to have two goalies in there.
The kids love this drill too because they get to work together. It's really great on communicating for the girls, especially our girls like to be silent on offense, whereas now they kind of have to call for a pick if they can't get open. So it's a great opportunity for them to kind of learn the communication offensively and defensively as well.
And it's such a great drill because the game of lacrosse is such a cerebral sport, and you actually have to use your brain and kind of figure out and try to beat the drill almost. Mm-hmm. So you have to use your brain. You have to think a little bit outside the box and how to beat the defense and, find different creative ways to score.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. Like Coach Mangan said, it's about creativity. And to go back to one of our fusion cornerstone like rules or philosophies, if the ball goes outside of play, instead of our players chasing it, a coach is going to roll a new ball in, and it's another contested ground ball. So again, no wasted time, and they're getting another opportunity to pick up a ground ball, which means another rep, and they're getting that much better.
And now whoever picks up the ground balls on offense, the other team's on defense, and this is another great way for your offensive players to learn how to play defense. It's another great way for your defensive players to work on their stick skills and dodging. It'll help them in transition and clearing as well.
Yeah, defensively, this is a really nice opportunity to work on defending players around goal lines. So for the guys working on your V holds, all right, or working on driving guys towards the sideline or turning them back towards X. And for the ladies as well, you're working on
turning the girls upfield and getting them out of the middle.
Exactly, defending around the crease, which is a difficult thing to do in the girls' game.
Especially since you can't go in it at our levels.
Hopefully soon you'll be able to.
Yeah, in college again. So eventually.
Cool. So that's Eboli. The last drill we're going to show you before we conclude our presentation is quads. This is a drill that we do in the box rink, and Robin has actually also taken outside, and it's worked really well for her girls.
With my girls, I like to break this down into doubles. So you're pretty much picturing just one half of the field. If you're looking at the field as a whole, you're cutting it horizontally. So you're looking at one half, and I like to play doubles instead of quads. When I'm inside, I like to pull it into quads. But outside, this is a great opportunity where I have, 4-on-4, and then the rest of the girls are doing the ladders, and they switch.
So in this drill, our boundaries we're going to use are actually the same boundaries as that Eboli game. We just kind of turn this diagram on you. We're going to use the wing line, and the top are the restraining lines. And the midfield line is going to be the midfield line in the game. And we're going to put cones down the middle vertical to create 4 quadrants. We have quadrant number 1, which is this space right here. Okay, the players in this quadrant cannot leave quadrant 1 until the 1 minute has expired. They cannot leave that quadrant. Now we also have quadrant 2. These players cannot leave this quadrant. Okay. The ball can leave the quadrant. Players can pass to any quadrant they want. Just physically, they can't leave this space for the minute. We have quadrant 3 over here where players, again, have to play in that designated area. And then we have quadrant 4. Now, you'll notice in each quadrant, we have a 2v2. 2 offensive players and 2 defensive players. You can even do this by color. So let's say the O's are represented as the blue team. Yeah, the D's are represented as the white team. Okay, we have 1 ball in play at a time. In each quadrant, the player is going to utilize a 2-man game or the woo-man game, pass down pick downs, pass down shallow cuts. They can work on sweeps or weaves. The point is to basically score a goal either using one another in the 2-man game, or maybe these players off ball are moving and you can even distribute to the opposite side of the field for a goal. So again, down here, the O's are on offense and the D's are on defense. Now, in this drill, everyone is involved, like we said. Let's say the goalie makes a great save. This defender breaks out. The goalie throws that defender the ball. Their job is to clear the ball to their offense on the other side, which would be the O's over here. So now the defenders are getting involved. They're not only playing defense, they're getting involved in the clear. They're utilizing, working on their skills, catching over the shoulder. They're clearing it up the field. And now, once these offensive players get the ball, it's their turn to go to the goal. So they're passing down and they're picking down, right? They're going to the cage. They're working on scoring with their stick to the inside. They can even go behind the goal if they want. They can use their players on the other side of the field over here in quadrant 1 if they want. After the 1 minute's up, we like to say, hey, let's rotate. Let's say these players rotate, clockwise. So these 2 guys or girls are going to go to quadrant 2.
So blue goes clockwise, white would go counterclockwise.
Exactly. These players go to quadrant here. So now you're getting a different matchup, and now these defenders were on defense. They now go to offense, right? So this is a drill where your defenders are going to play offense, your offenders are going to play defense. You're working on clearing. You're working on 2-man game. You're working on scoring in tight areas. You're working on getting the ball from one side of the field to the other. Everyone's engaged, and most importantly, right, you have 4, 8, 12, you have 16 players plus 2 goalies. You have 18 players playing at once. You get a lot of players involved, and they're all getting tons of reps. They're getting energized, they're getting buzzing, they're moving around, and they're getting better.
When I play this inside sometimes, if my girls are kind of struggling with the concepts, I'll have them drop their sticks, they'll play with tennis balls, and they just use their hands. It basically just gets them back to the fundamental part of the movement without having them worried about the catching and the throwing, and then we add the sticks back in once they've understood how to move together, and it becomes the lacrosse aspect again. But they really love playing with the tennis balls without the stick because they learn how to move off ball, on ball, they learn how to work together, and then you add the sticks back in, and it also keeps it a little bit safer inside because you don't really want lacrosse balls bouncing everywhere. So we tend to use tennis balls inside a lot. It also teaches the soft hands and the giving with it, so it's getting both of that.
Coach Mangan said before with the yellow ball, we do the same thing in the quads drill. You can throw in a yellow ball or a tennis ball saying, hey, we got to see one behind the back pass or one pass down, pick down before we go to the goal, right? We want to see one slip. We want to see you use your weekend. You can incorporate whatever you want depending on what your players need to work on. So you're kind of you're playing a game. They're competing. You're keeping score. It's really important to keep score so that way the competition stays up, the level stays up. At the same time, you're disguising things that your players need to work on. And most importantly, it's fun. And when it's fun, they compete. And when they compete, they're getting better.
Another thing, too, with this that will, especially with our FLG teams who are a little bit better lefty and righty, we'll make sure they know you can only use your outside hand. So quadrant 3, if you're playing offense, you're purely righty. You cannot put that stick in your left hand. If you take a lefty shot, it doesn't count. In quadrant 4, you're lefty.
Yeah, you can even put a rule in place like Robin said. If this player's on offense, you can put a rule. You have to have their stick to the outside. So if these 2 players, they should be playing righty. If you see them put the stick in their left hand, turnover. Give the ball, roll the ball to the other team. And that's something you can do as the coach / ref, control the game.
And that's also a great way for, we were just talking about this the other day. Girls don't really catch you over the shoulder pass correctly. We like to go where it's easy this way, but this is a great way for them. You have to keep it in the right hand. You're cutting to goal. It's a pure over-the-shoulder pass. You make that catch, you turn, you're right there to shoot. Yep. So it's a great way to practice that as well without them having that pressure of dropping it because they can get it right back.
So again, you have that parent waiting for you in the parking lot, like, why are you playing this game? That's really fun, and the players look like they're having a good time. They're laughing. they should really be standing around learning plays so we can go win on Sunday. Well, you can just show them the purpose and the objectives. This is, 5 or 6 of, I think, maybe 10 or 12 things that players are working on in this game. And if you incorporate a lot of variations as a coach, players could be working on an upwards of 20 different movements and skills. So I think it's important to always have, whatever drill you run, just have a purpose and have objectives as to why you're doing it. So that way you can communicate to everyone, hey, we're trying to get better and this is what we're working on.
Exactly. And make the point and the objective of the drill clear to the players as well. Because a lot of times you're doing one of these fun small area games, but the players don't actually understand how it correlates to the game. Ask them, hey, do you guys understand why we do these drills? They need to understand how it correlates onto the field and when they'll use that in a game situation.
Sure.
One of the biggest things I do with my girls, especially, with my varsity team and my club team, my PAL team, I'll say, do you understand? You tell me why we're doing this. Why are we doing this? You kind of start to ask them the questions. They start to explain it. They might explain it the wrong way. And then you're like, you're close, but this is really what we're trying to get to. And now it gives them a different way of playing. So that's a big thing I like to do is my checks and balances. Like, hey, do you understand why we're doing this? Yeah, okay, explain to me why we're doing this. Why are we playing quads? What does it help us with? You bring up all the points, they miss them, you help them with them. But it's a really great way to kind of check in with them to make sure that they're paying attention and that they're doing it the right way.
Yeah, Robin and Brandon just kind of closed us out there perfectly at the end. Always ask, what did you learn, right? We did these drills for a reason. Now have the players actually verbalize what they learned, why we were doing what we were doing, and now as they enter the game time, they're going to start applying these skills and drills and start getting better, which is what it's all about. And I guarantee if you continue to develop as a team, you're going to start winning games. That's a byproduct of development, right? A purpose of practice is not to win games. The purpose of practice is to get better, which in result, you'll hopefully win some games. So we're going to kind of conclude here. We have our last 2 slides. Now, and the question we want to ask kind of is what next, right? What is your preparation for the next practice? What's your time frame? What communication will you have with your staff? What are your goals? What documentation will you use? We talked a little bit about what FLG does. Doesn't mean necessarily that's what you have to do. With that said, we feel as though our families and our players have responded pretty well. We're always criticizing what we do. We're always trying to get better. So if you feel as though you have an idea that you want to share with us or other people, we recommend that you do that because there's a lot of different ways to do this and there's a lot of different ways to get players better and there's a lot of great coaches out there that do a really nice job. So it's important that you kind of share those ideas so that hopefully your players will continue to benefit from it. All right. Brandon, do you have any questions that you want to bring up that maybe we didn't necessarily cover throughout the presentation before we end here? I know one came in a little earlier. You mentioned about, if I don't have a practice plan, so what? Is that something along those lines?
Yeah. Why do I need a practice plan? The kids aren't going to notice. But that's not really true. If you come into a practice and you don't have a plan and you start trying to figure it out as the kids take a lap, they take notice. They realize kind of, we don't really know what we're doing here. And then that's where we get into that situation Robin was talking about earlier with the waiting time.
Yeah.
If you have to wait 2 minutes or if you keep telling the kids to get water breaks every 3 minutes so you can try and figure out what the next drill is,
sure.
The kids take notice, the parents take notice. And then all of a sudden your hour and a half has gone by and you've only ran through 3 drills and only played for maybe 30, 40 minutes of the whole hour and a half of practice. You want to try to get in as much lacrosse as you possibly can with the short amount of time that you get to be with your players.
Another big thing about the practice plan too, so just so you know, the way that waiting time is defined is if 50% or less of the kids are, 50% or more of the kids are standing and not participating in the drill, that's considered waiting time, even though 50% are playing. So these small area games is a great way to get kids a ton of reps because they're not standing for very long. So you've got kids working in and out. You have to pay attention because you never know when you're going on the field. So you don't really get like the chitter chatter on the sideline. You get like the kids really focused on the game, watching, cheering for their teammates. That's that leadership and teamwork again.
We had one last question too about the game. We always have one ball in play at a time. So We recommend that. Stick with that. If the ball goes out of play or a goal is scored, goal, new one in. Again, you have a minute and 20 seconds. You might have a minute. The players are a little older because they get tired quicker. Get the balls in and out as quickly as possible, but one in play at a time. So the last thing we're going to have here is our social media channels. We have FLG Lax. You can follow us on Instagram. We're on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Studleets. We're on Twitter, twitter.com/FLG Lax. That's our handle there. And then also we have a TV page on YouTube, which is FLG Lacrosse. You can read our daily blog on our website, which is flglacrosse.com/FLG-blog. And we do some great stuff on there as well. And again, every day we're posting stuff and updated content. If you have any questions about our presentation, if you want to know some more drills, learn more about FLG, just shoot us an email. We're happy to answer you, or you can always give us a call at 516-750-6500. All right, thank you so much for your time. We answered all our questions throughout the presentation, which is always good, and we hope you have a great night. Thank you so much.